Hello. It is a Magickal Monday live. I've decided to start calling it Magickal Monday live because Monday live stream just seemed kind of boring, but Magickal Monday live sounds much more exciting. So I just wanted to say hello. You can say hi when you come on if you like, so I can say hi back. I want to talk about Imbolc today. So Imbolc or Imbolc or Imbolc, like however you want to say it. I like to say Imbolc. It is the upcoming Sabbath that is celebrated usually on February 1st or February 2nd, depending on who you ask. It usually celebrates the goddess Brigid. Some people call her Brigid. Hi, Audrey. There are lots of different ways to spell her name, but most people just refer to her as Brigid. She is an Irish goddess of fire, forge, and inspiration. So that is the main deity that most people honor during this time. If you are not so much into specific deities, if you're not like a hard polytheist or if you're a soft polytheist who isn't really kind of into sorry, I'm trying to look at all the comments. If you're not really into naming your goddesses, you can also honor the crone turning into the maiden once again, like the ending of the winter cycle. You can honor the goddess of the sun or the goddess of the hearth. Basically, what we're honoring is the first signs of spring. So I am always honoring Brigid at Imbolc. I've always honored Brigid at Imbolc. I literally don't know anybody who does not honor Brigid at Imbolc, but I do kind of want to give you a couple options in case that's not your jam. But first, I want to talk about who Brigid is. So she is the goddess of fire, forge, and inspiration, which means like basically creativity. She's an Irish goddess. She was actually canonized as a saint. So you might also hear Saint Brigid. I feel like this probably happened when they were trying to convert all the crazy pagans into, Christians. So that's all very helpful. If you notice, a lot of our holidays are kind of co-opted into Christian holidays because was a really good marketing campaign. Let's not pretend it wasn't. There are a couple places where she's honored, like she had a temple at Kildare, which is in Ireland. Another place where people like to honor her is the Chalice Well, and that is in England. So, or you can just honor her at your hearth. It's up to you. Again, she is fire, forge, and transformation. If you think about fire, fire, forge, and inspiration, but fire and the forge especially really kind of they're both really associated with transformation because the fire is kind of a catalyst and the forge is what the transformation takes place on, and none of that would happen without the creativity and inspiration that also is part of that whole package. So I want to talk about some themes. So if you are not all yay Brigid, I'm going to do a Brigid devotional because not everybody's into that. You can center your Imbolc circle around passion. You can center it around transformation. You can center it around creativity, fire. There's a saying called having the fire in the head, which is that creative spark, the inspiration that happens when we really resonate with something, when we're in the flow state and we're really creating something. So if there's something that you want to create, if there's something that you need some inspiration or you need some sort of boost, this would be a good time for you to kind of really contemplate that and think about how you might be able to leverage that and put it into your Imbolc ritual. Imbolc actually means use milk. It is the time of the year where the milk would come in to the sheep, to the mom sheep, I guess. So another theme is like animals and livestock and the safety of that, and also like childbirth, because we've got the ewes, we've got the mom sheep and the baby sheep. So we also have the birth, which also can kind of be part of that transformation creativity spark as well. We also honor new beginnings. We also honor longer days and the coming of the spring. Now, this is going to look different to everybody depending upon where you are in like your geography. For me, I'm in Southern California. I'm in Orange County. My first signs of spring are not going to be the same as the first signs of spring for somebody who lives in Michigan, because we don't have snow. We barely have cold. It was almost 80 degrees today. So our first signs of spring isn't, it's not, we're not going to have snowdrops poking up through the snow, which is one of the like strong symbols that we see, the like daffodils or snowdrops, beginning to poke their heads up out of these like snow drifts. And I'll try to find a picture of that so I can comment that picture in here so you can see what I'm talking about. But for me, one of the first signs of spring that I get to see, and I just noticed it the other day actually, in my front yard, in front of this window right here, we have some calla lilies. Like, we don't do anything with these calla lilies. We don't water them. They just do their thing. And, I just saw, we have like a ground cover thing that I'm going to pretend is on purpose, but I'm pretty sure it's just overgrown. And, it's like almost like a little succulent. And I noticed that we have like the calla lily leaves are really beginning to come out of the ground. We have some that are up like about 8 inches and some that are up about 13 inches or whatever. And I'm really excited because that to me is February. Like, for me personally, like the February moon, I like to call the lily moon, because by the time the full moon is up, by the time like the first full moon in February, you think there's only one. Sometimes there's more than one. By the time that happens, I usually have some calla lilies. And many times hopefully, depending on whether it's a cold winter, cold winter is not really cold here, but colder winter or a warmer winter, I really like to cut like the first couple calla lilies and put them on my Imbolc. So the first signs of spring is really going to be influenced by where you are, what your weather looks like. But the most important thing is that it resonates with you. So I know I always like to talk about those four skills that I feel like everybody should really focus on in the beginning, or if you're trying to reconnect. And one of those skills is observation. And it's not just observation in your body, but also observation of your environment around you, because the cycles of the earth are going to look different to everybody. They're going to look different for me than it looks for somebody on the East Coast or somebody in the Pacific Northwest. I'm at work and I glanced up at the trees today, and they all kind of look like sticks, but there were tons of buds. I saw a bird's nest in a tree the other day. So the first signs of spring, it's going to be different for everybody. So keep in mind those themes. Again, passion, transformation, anything fire related, creativity, new beginnings, longer days, and then of course the signs of spring coming. Some people like to call this the quickening, meaning like this is the time where the seeds begin to awaken. Like, you're probably not planting them in the ground right now because the ground is really cold. We still have some freezing temperatures that could happen, but it's thought that this is the time of the year where the seeds begin to internally awaken and prepare themselves to be planted in the ground. So those are a couple themes that you might want to think about when you're planning your Imbolc celebration. And of course, I like to use the word celebration because a long formal ritual might not be for everybody. Instead, you might want to throw a dinner party. I just think it's a really important thing to at least celebrate it in some way. So that doesn't mean, get together with all your friends and do a formal ritual, but it could mean that. But it could be cook an intentional meal, think about when, really consider the themes of Imbolc and just celebrate it in some way, whether that is a 5-minute personal ritual, whether that is a guided meditation because you're super busy right now. Just mark it in your mind somehow. And when we do that, it allows us to connect more easily to the cycles of the earth. When we're honoring and celebrating those cycles, it allows us to access and resonate with that energy more easily. Okay, so let's talk about your altar. If you do altars, if that's your thing. I think it's most everybody's thing, because who doesn't really love a table full of pretty things? I mean, meaningful, sacred things, but also usually pretty things. And if you remember when I did the altar live stream, I talked about why it's important for your altar to be aesthetically pleasing, because you're going to want to work at it, right? And you're going to want to pay attention to it. So here are some ideas for your altar. I don't have a whole lot because I want you to be creative. This is like the creativity holiday. It's also the cheese holiday, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But some ideas for your altar: red, white, gold, silver. Those colors are perfect for Imbolc. I really like to go white. Like, I don't know if it's because I don't have snow. I imagine if I had snow, I might be a little bit sick of white at this portion of the program, but I really love the idea of evoking the feeling of winter, the feeling of like a softer winter, not like the harsh winter, but like a softer winter, like the beginning of the spring. So I like to use a white altar cloth. I try to break if I have a white thing, it is probably on the altar. I kind of just wish like I could get up and just show you all my things, because like I have a tea light thing that kind of folds out that's white, and I have a tray that's white, and obviously white candles. I have like a goblet that's white that I will put water in and put on the altar because it's beautiful, or place. I like to create a well of some sort. So okay, I'm trying to see. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I do like to create kind of a well, and I'll explain why. Not only was Brigid honored and like worshipped out and associated with wells, you can create like a symbolic well on your altar using a special bowl, a tray, any sort of vessel. It can, filled with water, can represent a well. And I have a cool thing, I got it at the thrift store, because the thrift store is an amazing place to find rad altar stuff. But it looks like a big, it's probably from the 70s or 80s. It looks like a big goblet, and it's about like this big. And I like to put water in it. And sometimes I'll put a candle in the middle as well. Because for me, a lot of Imbolc is water and fire, because we've got that spark of inspiration that is associated with Brigid and the forge, but she's also associated with a well, so I really like to do that as well. She's also associated with healing as well. So many times my coven will do a healing altar, just something casual before we actually do the ritual, where we invite everybody who is present to light candles for those people who could use some healing. So all of the white things for me, I love it. White and silver, or white and gold, or red and gold and white. Those are like the main colors. Anything that's fiery and anything that is like winter related, those are some really good things to put on your altar. Obviously candles, because it's fiery. Sheep, anything that has to do with sheep. I found a really cute like wooden sheep that I found at the Dollar Tree about 10 years ago that I love. You can also find just cute sheep, sheep is a thing sometimes. People like to do their kitchens in sheep. Like I've seen like some sheep like accessories. Like I saw some sheep on like some wooden spoons the other day. I'm like, I cannot buy every wooden spoon that is cute. So I left them there at the Home Goods. But anything that's sheep related, anything cheese, anything milk, and Brigid's crosses, which I'll talk about in a second. So if you want to add some crystals or some herbs to your altar to kind of help not only be aesthetically pleasing, but maybe to add some creative energy to your ritual, you might want to think about mostly orange stones, like citrine, which is like yellowish orange, I get it, but citrine, carnelian, like garnet. Think fiery stuff like mookaite, jasper. If your creativity comes with like some spoken word, like if you plan on doing some poetry or some singing or writing some songs, you may want to look into a couple blue stones like blue apatite or lapis lazuli, because those are related with communication and like singing and your throat chakra. So those are some crystals that you might want to use if you are trying to kind of amplify that creative energy. So here's a couple activities that you can do. So you can create a Brigid's cross out of wheat or out of pipe cleaners. I did do a video about this not too long ago. I'm going to go ahead and post that comment. I'm kind of prepared today to post comments like while I'm actually doing it. So I actually uploaded this video to YouTube. So if you missed it and you don't want to go through the whole feed to look for it, it is on YouTube. I made it out of pipe cleaners, which is a very, very, very easy medium to create your first Brigid's cross. I do not suggest creating your first Brigid's cross out of wheat unless you've, or wheat or grasses or reeds, unless you've already worked with these mediums, because it is, unless you want to, you know, that was the first type, that was the first medium I used when I made my first Brigid's cross. But I got kind of frustrated because I was trying to follow the directions and it wasn't like doing what I wanted it to do. And it was, you know, there were some challenges. So I really suggest using something like pipe cleaners for your first Brigid's cross because they're very easy to manipulate. You can use whatever colors you want. And it's easy, and it's something that you can do with your kids. If you've got kids, or if you're having a bunch of people over for a dinner party or a ritual, it's a super inexpensive but kind of sacred activity that actually relates to the Sabbath itself. I bought 2 packs of pipe cleaners. They were like $3 a piece at Walmart. Super cheap, super fun, super easy. You can choose whatever colors you like. It's pretty awesome. So, but any sort of creative craft will also do. Also, anything about candles. I'm trying to think of everything that I've done in the past. We've made candle lanterns out of mason jars. One year we made candle lanterns. You can make candle lanterns out of anything. You can take tin cans. This is especially really fun if you have kids. I remember I did this as a kid in school. We took candle lanterns and we used a nail and a hammer to kind of hammer little holes in it to make a design, and we placed candles in it. You know, if you go on Pinterest, there's a ton of candle lantern ideas. I'm sure you can get a mason jar and kind of decoupage it with tissue paper so you can still kind of see through the glass, and it kind of is sort of like a stained glass effect. You can write some poetry. You can make or decorate candles. And if you're like, oh my God, making candles sounds like it's so hard, it totally can be super hard. I'm not going to lie, but it can be literally the easiest thing ever. Here's a super easy way to create candles. All you need, you just go to the grocery store. Well, you might have to go to Michael's to get some actual candle wicking. But once you have that candle wicking, all you need is a crock pot, a mason jar, and some paraffin wax. And you can get the mason jars and the paraffin wax at the grocery store in the same section, in like the canning section. Excuse me. You can get soy wax, you can get beeswax, you can do whatever, but you know, it's better to do something than to try to wait until it's perfect. Like, oh, maybe I'll do it next year when I get my soy wax or whatever. I really feel strongly like let's just make a candle. So it's so easy. You get your crock pot. I covered my crock with like the bottom of the crock and kind of the sides a little bit with aluminum foil because I didn't want to make things a mess. And you think you're just gonna pour all the wax in it? No, you don't even have to do that. What you do is you take your mason jars, you put them in your crock pot. Then you take your paraffin wax and you cut it up into little cubes. The smaller the cube, the quicker it's going to melt. Keep that in mind. It is not easy to cut a big chunk of paraffin up. So if you run your knife under hot water, it will more easily cut the paraffin. Cut them into little cubes. You will probably need, depending on how many, if you're only making one candle, like obviously like one block of paraffin, it's usually like about this big. One block of paraffin will do. If you're making multiple, you're going to want multiple bricks of paraffin wax. So what you basically do is you get your candle wicking. Last time I did it, you could buy, not like the super soft wiggly wicks, but the waxed wicks that have the metal disc on the bottom that you can use for like votive candles. I bought some that had pretty tall wicks. So what I did was you take your mason jar, you place the wick in the center, and around the wick, you place all those little chunks of paraffin wax. And you place them inside your crock pot. You can just turn it on to high, put the lid on. It melts the wax. And then when you're done, turn your crock pot off very carefully. Remove, make sure your wick is still centered. Take it out of your crock pot and let it cool. And then you have a candle that you just made. So easy. So it's so easy that my group did it for a full moon ritual like years and years ago. So like we did it on the full moon, like on a weekday. It's very easy. Okay. Another cool tradition that I used to do is I would take the stubs of all the candles that I used during the year. So every like candle magic at the time, I was doing a shit ton of candle magic. And so I burn it I try to burn it all the way down, but it doesn't always burn all the way down, right? So I keep all my extra candle wax. If like candle wax fell, I would like keep it. And at Imbolc, I would create a new candle with the remnants of all of everything I put all that magical energy in, throughout the whole last year, since last Imbolc. And then I would create a new candle out of that for my altar. Not like something I would actually do a working with, but just like an illumination candle, just a candle to sit on my altar to make it easier to read by, those pretty candles that are not actually part of a working, but you need, if you're going to do something in the dark, you're going to have to be able to see one of those kinds of candles. Another activity you can do is to make butter out of cream. Super easy. Another mason jar thing. Evidently, my message tonight is buy all the mason jars. So you just I got the quart size mason jars, and you just get cream, you pour it in there, and you just shake it and shake it and shake it and shake it and shake it. And eventually it will turn into butter. So once it turns into butter, you can add salt, you can add herbs, you can make a compound butter. You can use that butter as part of your Imbolc feast. So if you have bread, you can make like a delicious herb butter with maybe some garlic or just some salt and some rosemary or whatever. Or you can make rosemary butter and put it on top of steak, whatever your jam is. You can, and you don't even have to, you can just make it and sit it on your altar for a little bit during your ritual. It's up to you, but it's kind of a cool activity that you can take from being outside of the ritual, just celebrating as your own self, just as a celebratory activity. And then you can take what you've made and use it as part of your sacred feast. I've seen some people do an Advent spiral counting down to spring, like with different candles, and every night you light another candle. There's also a tradition called the bride's bed. You create a corn dolly and you create like a little bed for her. And it's kind of like a fertility ritual. You can place a symbol of fertility in the bed with her. And it's kind of like she's the bride, and, you're creating fertility to last throughout the rest of the year. So those are a couple things. I'm going to post a link to my Pinterest board, which has not only a ton of activity ideas, but also some recipes. So like food wise, you probably want to do, I like to call it the dairy holiday. To me, it's like the dairy and Irish food holiday. So it's like cold cannon, Guinness stew, cheese, all of the cheese and all of the butter. And even if you're vegan, you can obviously, use like earth balance instead of butter. And, you could make fake Guinness beef stew with like Gardein. Like I've totally done that as well. So there are a lot of substitutions that you can make. Okay, so some ideas for ritual. Create that bride's bed and maybe do a candlelit procession. Imbolc also tends to be a really popular time for dedications, rededications, and initiations. So again, it's kind of like that new beginning energy that is coming, the awakening of spring. So you can dedicate yourself to your path, to your partner, to a specific deity. It's a great time for any of those things to do as part of your Imbolc ritual. You can make offerings to Brigid. You can make creative offerings to Brigid. So that could be a song, it could be a poem, it could be a piece of writing, it could be something you drew. You can do a painting. So those are some good ideas for some creative offerings. You can just dedicate a candle to Brigid and light it when you would like to ask her for her energy throughout the rest of this year. You can create a shrine to her. My group has done that in the past, and now that shrine sits in the heart of my house in the kitchen. One other idea is to turn all the lights out in the house, which is something very similar to something I suggested as a Yule ritual, and light a candle in each room to symbolize the growing light. So those are some ideas for your rituals. I'm going to actually make a post in the group about music, but I really like the idea of there are so many amazing Imbolc and Brigid songs out there. I'm going to, like I said, create a post so that everybody can add their favorites, because there's so many beautiful songs out there. And that doesn't mean you just have to listen to it during ritual or whatever. You can listen to it all throughout Imbolc season. You can listen to it if you don't really like music during your ritual. When you're listening to all of this devotional music and all of this music based and centered around these specific energies, it makes even the setup process kind of sacred. Even when if you're just cleaning, or you're just preparing something, or you're cooking your Imbolc dinner, like just putting on a kind of an Imbolc Brigid sort of playlist, it's pretty amazing. Celia is an artist. She has great songs. So does Lisa Thiel. I will definitely be adding my recommendations to the post I'm going to post, but it's pretty awesome. If you want to learn more about Brigid, my group, we read this amazing book as a group. It's called Tending Brigid's Flame. Let me write that down. Tending Brigid's Flame. Okay. So I just posted a link to that book. It's a very, very good book. It is my affiliate link. So if you do buy something, I'll get a dime. So that would be awesome. I'm just guessing. I don't do math. But it's a very, very, very good book. And if you are interested in learning more about this amazing goddess of fire, forge, creativity, inspiration, protection of children and animals, she's pretty amazing. She's multifaceted. And the author of this book not only gives you some concrete practices to do, but it's a very, very informative and well-written book. So I think that's pretty much all I have today about Imbolc. Again, keep an eyeball out for the keep an eyeball, just a ball. No, keep an eye out for the post I'm going to post about creating an Imbolc playlist. And I think that's it. If you have any questions, or if you were watching the replay, you can always type in replay. You can always type your question in. You can always tag me, and I'll be happy to answer you. Imbolc is one of my ultimate favorite Sabbaths of the year. I love the energy of potential. There's so much potential energy. It's like right before the beginning of spring. So it really makes me super excited and super happy. So that's it for me. I will talk to you later, and bye.